Good morning, and welcome to Barbaras Bulletin, the podcast where we bring you the latest news from around the world in a fair and balanced way. We start with a developing story in the Middle East, where tensions are escalating between Yemen's Houthis and Saudi Arabia. The Houthis have launched missiles at Abha Airport in southwestern Saudi Arabia in response to airstrikes on Sanaa''s airport, which they blamed on the kingdom. The Saudi-led coalition in Yemen said its air defenses dealt with the missiles, and no casualties were reported. This escalation is significant, as it's the most notable increase in violence between the Houthis and Saudi Arabia since an informal truce took effect 4 years ago. Yemen has been devastated by a civil war that began in 2014, when the Houthis ousted the government from Sana'a, the capital. The conflict has reportedly left over 150,000 people dead and triggered one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. The internationally recognized Yemeni government said it carried out the strikes on Sanaa''s airport to prevent an Iranian plane from landing. However, the Houthis accused Saudi Arabia of being behind the strikes, which they say have ended the de-escalation phase of their conflict. The situation is complex, with multiple parties involved, including Iran, which has been backing the Houthis. The United Nations has expressed concern about the escalation and called on all actors to engage in negotiations under UN auspices. We'll continue to follow this story and bring you updates as more information becomes available. In the meantime, we're also keeping an eye on another related story, where Brent oil prices have surged above $86 after Iran was accused of striking 2 UAE tankers in the Hormuz Strait. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Barbaras Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbaras Bulletin. As we continue to explore the complex landscape of global events, we turn our attention to the Middle East, where tensions between Israel and its neighbors have been escalating in recent weeks. We've seen reports of U.S.-brokered talks between Lebanon and Israel aimed at implementing a framework deal to end the conflict in southern Lebanon. The talks, which took place in Rome, brought together officials from both countries to discuss the details of a potential agreement. According to sources, the Lebanese delegation is seeking a gradual and sequential withdrawal of Israeli troops from the region, with the goal of deploying Lebanese army forces to the south. This plan, known as the Pilot Zone Project, would involve Hezbollah disarming and Israeli forces withdrawing from specific areas, allowing Lebanese troops to take control. However, the path forward is fraught with challenges. Israel has expressed concerns about the security implications of a withdrawal, while Hezbollah has rejected the agreement and efforts to disarm it. The conflict has already resulted in significant humanitarian costs, with thousands of Lebanese civilians killed or displaced since March. In a related development, we've seen reports of renewed hostilities between the U.S. and Iran in the Gulf, which has raised concerns about the stability of the region. The situation is complex and multifaceted, with various parties vying for influence and power. As we strive to make sense of these developments, it's essential to approach the issue with nuance and balance. We must consider the perspectives of all parties involved and acknowledge the deep-seated concerns that drive their actions. In the pursuit of peace and stability, diplomacy and dialogue are crucial. The fact that talks are taking place between Lebanon and Israel is a positive step, but it's only the beginning. A lasting resolution will require sustained effort, compromise, and a commitment to finding common ground. As we move forward, we'll continue to monitor these developments and provide you with in-depth analysis and insights. For now, we'll take a closer look at the implications of these events and what they might mean for the future of the region. Welcome back to Barbaras Bulletin. As we wrap up today's show, I'd like to bring your attention to a pressing global health issue that's been making headlines lately. The ongoing Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda has raised concerns about containment and response efforts. While some countries have imposed travel bans, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the World Health Organization have criticized these measures as lacking scientific basis and potentially causing economic harm. Instead, a more cooperative approach centered on evidence-based measures, such as community reporting, case isolation, and infection control protocols in healthcare facilities, has been proposed. This model prioritizes community engagement and solidarity with affected countries, rather than solely focusing on limiting transmission across borders. It's heartening to see African nations coming together to support each other in times of need, with several countries pledging assistance to the DRC without expecting anything in return. This spirit of cooperation is a shining example of what can be achieved when we put the needs of those affected at the forefront. As we consider the best ways to respond to global health crises like Ebola, it's essential to prioritize fairness, equity, and scientific evidence. By working together and supporting each other, we can create a more effective and compassionate response to these challenges. That's all for today's Barbaras Bulletin. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay engaged.